This is a Pokemon card. And they genuinely have some of the most mind-blowing art I've ever seen. Every piece shows an incredible amount of detail in both composition, coloring and design, which culminates into art pieces that truly feel alive. Which is exactly why I wanted to explore what makes the art of Pokemon cards so incredibly good, while generating literal billions in revenue. So I've set myself 3 goals for this video. Figure out what makes Pokemon cards so appealing, design and illustrate 3 original Pokemon cards from scratch, and finally test if they're believable by trying to trick my friends into thinking they're actually real Pokemon cards. But to make some truly convincing Pokemon card designs I would need some reference material. So I kinda went overboard buying some. But it was worth it in the end as I got some really awesome stuff. Like this Sariya card that has an absolutely outstanding and super saturated moonlit background, really helping the almost monochromatic Sariya pop against the environment. I also got this Fullart field card, which in addition to being absolutely adorable, uses a vastly different art style that focuses more on texture and variation in saturation to stand out. But I didn't only get Pokemon. This Crispin card really showcases the TCG line's strength when it comes to super dynamic and vibrant character design and posing. Oh, and I also got an orangutan. All this to say that Pokemon TCG cards don't follow a single uniform art style that every card uses. They're all extremely varied in terms of art style, use of color and even sometimes the medium itself, which makes it borderline impossible to study and figure out a single correct way to make believable Pokemon card designs. Still, after staring at and compiling what felt like hundreds of them, I had to at least try. So I started scouring the interwebs for inspiration, which is when I stumbled across this football kick silhouette, and I instantly knew that I had to try drawing Scorbunny in this pose as my first card. It was either that or a Gardevoir card, and I wanted to keep this video Gunner free for now. So after getting a super rough sketch down, I slowly started to iterate on the sketch, slowly refining elements of the drawing, trying to keep it as dynamic as possible. Using CSP's Liquify tool really helped me in the earlier stages of the sketch, as it allows you to easily shift things around without having to redraw it manually. As for the line art, a lot of the time Pokemon cards have either super thick pronounced line art or barely any at all, with a few cards falling somewhere in between. For this Scorbunny card I decided that a bold, slightly textured line art would probably look best, and I'm actually really happy about how it turned out. Jumping directly into the coloring, I quickly realized that I should probably plan out what to do for the backgrounds elements now too. And this is where some TCG cards just go absolutely batshit insane. But unfortunately I'm not even close to the skill level as most of these artists. So after getting the location of the sun down as a primary light source, I drew in most of the cel-shaded shadows on Scorbunny. I now decided to make the background a blue sky where the composition of the clouds would circle around Scorbunny, leading the viewer's eyes towards the ball. I also blended Scorbunny in with a few more gradients where it made sense, like his head to make the shape feel more volumetric, along with drawing some very simple mountains in the background in addition to making the line art even thicker at some key places. Now all that was left was just adding a few more details like some grass on the mountains, a little color correction, lights, and BAM! Our first Pokemon card. I'll come back to how you can make this exact border later in the video, but for now Scorbunny was in the box. And if you're interested in getting the PSD or CSP source files for these drawings, you can do so by becoming a channel member. For this next card, I really wanted to try drawing a Fullart trainer illustration card. I've always been super fascinated by these types of illustration rare cards. Everything from their coloring, composition and line work is just mind-blowingly good. About a year ago, I actually sketched down some Fullart trainer card concepts in an attempt to make this very video you're watching right now. But as you can see, they were never finished. So now, a full year later, it was finally time to make my past self proud by bringing one to life. So I jumped straight into thumbnailing 3 new concepts for a Fullart trainer card, taking inspiration from some of the previous sketches and came up with these 3 ideas. And I ended up picking this middle one to expand on. I'm imagining it set on a beautiful beachside with a big sun in the background as the major light source, along with a few Pokemon flying in the background to add depth. And who better to star in this card other than everyone's favorite new first rap, Emma from Pokemon CA. Since I already had the basic composition down, I could get straight into making a more refined sketch on top. And from there I just iterated on it until I had something I was happy with. But before moving on to line art, I wanted to make a rough color and shading pass just to get a better idea of what the finished illustration would look like. I can definitely recommend doing this on your own drawings, as it can be a little hard sometimes to spot mistakes on the sketch itself. So doing this allows you to easily fix stuff you wouldn't have normally noticed before finalizing your sketch into line art. But before finalizing the Emma full Fullart card, I may have secretly finished the third TCG card too. So, are you able to guess which one of these 3 I made? Comment down below, and if you get it right, I'll heart your comment. But anyways, getting back on track, I wanted to quickly cover how I made this background. And it's actually a lot simpler than it seems. I mostly just use pre-made cloud brushes for the entire thing, even painting the ocean purely using a snow preset I found using a variety of blue hues. I actually used to be super scared of drawing backgrounds, but for simpler ones, I've actually kind of realized that just with a little help from a few pre-made brushes and basic color theory, it's actually fairly easy to make some pretty darn cool backgrounds. But before moving on to the line art, I quickly adjusted and fixed some few issues I noticed after the color pass, and I quickly decided that I was actually way too lazy to do line art, so I just resorted to cleaning up the sketch instead, which would funnily enough give the drawing some really cool texture. And like I mentioned in the previous video, basically no one will notice if your line art isn't 100% perfect, as long as the rest of the drawing is well made. So much else even benefit from looking a bit messy and rough around the edges. When it comes to filling the line art with color, I really recommend this technique I picked up from some pro artists. Start by filling the line art by using a much brighter color than the one you actually want to use. This way you'll be able to tell much easier when you've missed a few spots, since the bright color stands out against the black line art. Then afterwards just switch the colors back to whatever you originally wanted to use. As for the shading, I used a painterly brush to highlight the edges of Emma's silhouette, since the primary light source, aka the sun, was directly behind her. I then added some simple shadows to enhance the depth and volume, wrapping everything up with a few simple lighting effects and some extra background detail to finally bring everything together. And with that, Emma is at last done. So with all of the custom TCG artwork finally done, it was time to make them into actual TCG cards. My first idea was to manually make the border myself, and I actually managed to get pretty close, if I dare do say so myself. But my efforts were a bit in vain, as I later discovered a site called Pokecardgenerator.com. Here you can fully customize everything you'd ever need on a card template and download what you made for free. They do unfortunately have some pretty cringe Gen AI stuff here, which is just extremely tone deaf, as Pokemon TCG literally wouldn't exist without the same artist Gen AI is directly ripping off. But either way, I only cared about getting the templates. And after that I just manually fit the artwork into the cards, meaning I had finally managed to finish my very own Pokemon cards. But I still needed to see if the cards were good enough to actually trick people into thinking they were real though. So I asked none other than Sir Marcus Pyler what he thought.
I don't know what it is, but my gut tells me that I'm done!
Okay then. Either way, I'm personally super happy about how they turned out, especially when it came to my improved ability to draw faces. So if you want to see how I got better at doing exactly that, here's a video of me practicing drawing faces for 100 hours.